Big old coon too.
Obama.
Thanks, miss.
Welcome to Thoughts of a Dog Man
I don't know what it
podcast.
is, man.
On this episode, we're talking about phase 4, the final phase, the hunt scenarios from the pup to partner series. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about some dogs.
Welcome back. It is good to see you. We are happy that you are here. I'm your host, Stevie Thomas of Bawlin Out Kennels, where we help new beginning handlers create, perfect, and explore the art of hunting dog training through stories, tips, and techniques, and that proper mindset to get you started on the right track. So here we go. We are on phase 4, which is our final phase of our pup to partner series. And we're just going to recap. You know, the fourth phase is pretty much the fun phase. And it can also be a little bit of a headache and stressful and rewarding. There's just a bunch that goes into that fourth phase. It's really just starting where your pup is now basically hunting. You are basically taking that dog through hunting scenarios from here on out. That's pretty much what you're going to be doing with that pup. Now, some situations you may have to reevaluate what's happening with the dog, but it really takes, you really don't have to be patient. It's going to take a lot of patience. Yes, you've done a lot of the let work in the beginning, but now this pup is really turning into a hunting dog. He's getting to the point to where he's starting to be a hunting dog, which still takes a lot of time. But it's fun. You will enjoy taking this dog or this pup and watching him grow and develop to being that hunting partner that you're looking for. And for some of the people who have may not, and maybe this is your first time and you're catching phase 4, I would really suggest running back and checking out phase 1 and just start the series from the beginning so you kind of get an idea of how we got to where we are now, which is basically the hunt scenarios. But I'll try to give you a quick rundown. So recap on phase 1, basically we were talking about letting the puppy be a puppy. You know, a lot of us want these dogs to start fairly early, and some are bred to do so and some are not. Sometimes starting them early can actually cause more issues down the road than just letting them be a puppy. They have the rest of their life to be a hunting dog, a hunting companion, but they really only have that brief moment in time, really months, 6, 7, 8 months to just be a puppy. So you have to really allow them to do that. In phase 2, we got into talking about, starting some drag work. We're starting the dogs doing some scent work. And over here, we really talk about 3 types of dogs. We talk about hunting beagles. We talk about tree dogs. And I love my American leopard curs. They're American leopard hounds to some people. Not to be confused with Catahoula. That is a different breed of dog, different style of dog. What they do is different. But American leopard curs, American leopard dogs is what is my tree dog of choice. And I'll say it every time. I am biased. I love them. If you don't know about them, shoot me a message or look online and get some information on them because they are really top-notch dogs. And then we'll talk about bird dogs. I have setters, and I'm really actually new to the bird dog world. So you guys are actually coming along with me as I start learning and developing my skills in training a bird dog. Some things I'm learning that, you can take from what I've learned with training beagles and training hounds into bird dogs, but they also have a whole different avenue to train them. Some things that I won't use with my beagles or my hounds, I have to utilize with bird dogs. We got to pay some bills. Let's take a word from our sponsor. Are you somebody who's new to rabbit hunting with beagles, or maybe on the fence and trying to get started or not? You might want a little bit more help getting pointed in the right direction. Well, I got just what you need. Producing a future rabbit dog. So in this short little book, I pretty much lined out exactly what I like to do when I'm picking my puppies, when I'm training my dogs, and just some other concepts I've learned over the years. Me, Ty, with a bunch of my mentors, put this together. A lot of this information is easy to follow. I want it to be as easy as possible for anybody who's never got in with dogs or rabbit hunting with beagles to be able to produce a future rabbit dog. So if you sound like that's you, go on and check it out on Amazon and grab you a copy. So again, we're talking about phase 2, drag work, scent work with the dogs. We talked a little bit about how to introduce some of those things, what to look for when you're starting to work drags with your puppies. But at the same time, you have to remember, keep the session short. You want that pup to be most excited when you shut it down. You really want that pup to think about what just happened and think about that for a day or two to cement that in its brain. But you got to start or stop when the dog is most excited, because they're still babies at the end of the day. And if you take, a long training session, the dog will get burnt out before you know it. And they'll get to a certain age where they're just not going to want to do it anymore. And in phase 3, we were introducing the live game part of it. And we talked a little bit about how to go about getting live game. Again, you have to check the regulations and stuff in your area. But we talked about how, trap live game, if you're talking about a rabbit, a squirrel, a raccoon, how to trap birds using bird traps, and different avenues on how to get some of those game for training tools. That's all they're going to be, is training tools. With that session or with that phase, you really want to talk, see what that dog is doing. You have to read that dog. The dog will tell you a lot. And if any part of these phases where the dog doesn't seem like it's quite grasping what you want him to do, just take a moment, step back, and go back to the last training technique you were using and make sure that dog understands what fully you want them to do, and watch them. Just take it slow. Again, some of this foundational work is going to be very important when you get down the road. And if you're seeing faults or you're seeing where this dog is excelling, you have a better idea on what to introduce to him next. The dog will let you know when it's time to move to the next phase or the next session or the next whatever when it comes to their training. You just really, as a handler, have to pay attention to it. And here we are to phase 4, which is basically hunting scenarios. How to set this puppy up for success. And the first thing I would really say is finding a place that has an abundance of the game species that you're after. If we're talking about beagles, you have to make sure that you take this pup as it's just getting going to a place that has a crazy amount of rabbits, if you can make that happen. Some areas, we don't have one in mind. I'm in Northeast Iowa. We don't have one in my area, but a lot of hunting clubs or hunting beagle clubs, they have big fenced in areas that are stacked with rabbits. Maybe you can become a member of a club in your area, or maybe in a short distance, 2 to 3 hour drive away from you, and be able to have access to a place that 100% has rabbits and has a lot of them, because you really want to introduce that pup to this game when he's starting his hunting scenarios, to put as much game in front of him as possible. It's no different with the tree dogs, squirrels. If you're in an area that has a ton of squirrels, you want those tracks, you want that scent, you want any interaction you can get with a squirrel with your tree dog as much as possible. When I was actually first starting, one of the things I would do, I would actually visit like our city parks. I would visit a lot of the parks. Most of them have, nice, at least in my area, they have nice oak trees. If you get out there fairly or early in the morning, where there's not a lot of traffic, there's not a lot of people around, I would take my dog Bama and we would literally walk through the park. But I wasn't going on a casual stroll. I mean, I was, but I wasn't. I was using it as a training tool because where I was living at the time, I didn't have a lot of squirrels in my neighborhood that I could trap and use for tools. So I would pretty much kill two birds with one stone. I would allow Bama to ride in the car, ride in the dog box, get used to being transported in the dog box, getting him out, handling him, and now we're going, quote unquote, hunting, but we were just walking through the park, and there were so many squirrels around, and I would just magically drop the leash, let's say, and Bama would start treeing squirrels in the park. He had his leash on. He's a big dog. He got away from me, and he would go tree squirrels in the park. That was one thing I started with him. Again, just trying to get as many opportunities for him to tree, get as many opportunities for him to be, interact with that squirrel, get that scent in his nose when he was a puppy. And Bama could tree squirrels when he was 5 and 6 months old. And I think that had a big part of it. And talking about bird dogs, I don't think it's really no different either, to where you really want to have as many opportunities for that bird dog to be involved with, the bird of choice. If you're hunting quail, if you're hunting pheasants, I use a training tool of pigeons. We talked a little bit in the previous sessions about how I went about getting pigeons, or how you can go about getting pigeons. You can look on Facebook and some other places online that, there may be places where you can buy them $5 or $6 a bird. You just have to do some checking in your area, or you can also make contact with some people and just have them trapped for free. But you really want as much opportunity for that bird dog to point, to scent, to track, to do all those things he was bred to do. That's just going to help perfect even further the foundation that you've already worked on with him. Using released game. Again, we're talking about the trapping. If you don't have a place that you can take the dog that has an abundance of game that you're after, you're going to have to probably do a little leg work, which is not all that bad. You're going to have to do a little bit of leg work to try to get some of these animals trapped so you can release them for your dog. In my area, coons are really, they're kind of becoming a nuisance. So we have abundance of it. If you let somebody know that, hey, I need some coons trapped, you're going to get coons. It's just how it is. There's just, people are really having issues with them getting in their corn, getting in their barns, all sorts of things, where you're going to have access to coons. If you're not in an area that has an abundance of coon, you may have to think of something different. Like maybe you have abundance of squirrels. Rabbits are a little bit different because it can be tougher to trap them. Although we talked about how going about trapping squirrel or trapping rabbits, we talked about some options I've used and have had success with trapping rabbits. But again, if you don't have abundance of these game animals, you're going to have to do a little legwork to get them trapped. And then pretty much all you're going to do with that is you're going to release them in an area where your dog can hunt them. Now, we've talked in a previous session, in session 3, of doing sight release. We're not going to do that anymore. Once that dog gets a certain age, you really want to pay close attention to how much sight activities that you're doing with them, because you do not want the dog to be more familiar with using his eyes instead of using his nose. Most of these dogs that we're talking about, the game species they're after, they're going to have to use their nose to produce them. Their eyes can help in some situations, but most of them, it's going to be their nose more times than not. So instead, to avoid the dog seeing so much game, we're going to basically fake the dog out. We are going to take him to a place that we're going to hunt, and we are going to walk out and we're going to release the dog, or release the animal, and we're going to go back and get our dogs. I had a guy tell me one time, especially when we're talking about coon dogs here, tree dogs, he would have a coon trapped And he would literally go out and release the coon 5 and 6 hours before he would even go back to start hunting, just to see how well of a dog he had, see how strong a dog nose was, and allow that coon to do what coons would do. You know, once you first release them, they're going to take off running. They may hit the first tree that they come to. But after an hour or two, they're going to come down and they're just going to start exploring. So it's really setting that dog up for a hunting scenario. At that point, you really don't know where that coon went. You can maybe have an idea depending on where you released him, but you have no idea what that coon did. So now you're going to have to allow that pup to find that coon as if it's a natural hunting situation. Exactly what we want. And you can't forget about the traveling to hunt. Once we get to a point where we're doing some sight releasing, we're doing some blind releasing for the dogs, letting the animals go ahead of time before going back and getting our dogs. One thing we can't forget about is getting the dog used to traveling before hunting. Most of the stuff we talked about in phase 1, 2, and 3 can be done at the house. In most situations, it can be done at the house. But we can't forget about taking dogs to a place that they haven't been to release. Here in Northeast Iowa, or at least Iowa in general, we have a lot of public land that we have access to hunt. It's closed down between March 15th to July 15th. So that part kind of sucks, especially, somebody who trains dogs. Because a lot of the times those are really good training temperatures. There's not a lot of foliage on. It's just the scenting conditions are a lot more steady. They're fairly steady that time of year. You can get some really good hunting sessions in and practice that time of year. But I understand for the nesting situation, they close it down from March 15th, July 15th. I hope that's in the future they change that, but I guess we'll come to it when we get there. But we have a lot of public land that we can utilize in the times that it's open to be able to take your dog there and train. You want to travel with them, and that means putting them in the dog box. And even before doing the hunting situations or hunting scenarios with them, making sure that the dog is used to their dog box. And that's just taking short rides, especially as a puppy. You want them to be familiar with it. You will see if you do not do this for the first couple times, and not all dogs are like this, but the first couple times they're in the dog box and they're starting to go for a ride, they may get a little sick. What I would do is I would not, if I knew I was going to train on going for a ride, I would not feed that dog. I would not feed them before I did that, just to help their stomach settle a little bit, just to help them be a little bit more comfortable with the whole situation. And I wouldn't go for a 3-hour car ride either. In the very beginning, I would just start with short rides. I would go around the block a couple times, come back home, and I would feed them. And then I would go a little bit longer. You really don't want to take the dog the first time he's ever been in a dog box, and he's going to you're going to put him through a hunting scenario. It's probably not going to go to where you're planned it, and that can build frustration on your end of things, which I'm sure you do not want. I wouldn't want that, because everything is new to this pup, especially going to a different place. Again, it's part of the hunting scenario, though, because obviously you're not going to be, unless you have the luxury, you're not going to be hunting in your backyard. You're going to have to travel somewhere to hunt. Again, it's piecing together the hunting scenario from phase 1 all the way to 4, which is hunting. There's another option, too, is a lot of people will use a pup starter. Maybe thinking, if you're new to it, what's a pup starter? A pup starter can basically be an older dog that is broke. And when I say broke, I mean it's not going to run any game animal that's not what it's intended to. You don't have to worry about it running deer. You're not going to have to worry about it treeing possums. You're not going to have to worry about it, pointing things it's not supposed to. And you're going to allow the puppy to follow the older dog as a mentor, so to speak. That older dog is going to show the pup the right way to do things, and the hope that the pup is actually following the older dog. it can be really beneficial to having that broke older dog to do those sort of things. It'll give that puppy confidence. In a way, you're a coach, but that's maybe an assistant coach if you want to look at it that way. That pup trainer is an assistant coach. They're out there showing that little pup the ropes. Now, the pups are gonna make mistakes. We can't forget that at the end of the day, they're still really young. It's the beginning phases of them becoming that hunting partner, that dog that you really want. And it really takes patience. It's going to take a lot of patience. Now, some people may not like to use a pup starter. You may not have access to a pup starter. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's just going to take some time for you, and it's going to be good one-on-one time with that dog. I didn't really have, when I started, and we're talking about tree dogs, when I started my dog Bama, I did not have a pup trainer. I would go hunt with my mentor Mike and a couple other friends who had coon dogs at the time, but it was really just me and him. It was really just me and him. And it got to the point where I could read him fairly well. I knew when he was on a track. I knew when he wasn't. I knew by his bark at the tree if he had the game or if he didn't. Spending that time with that dog allows you to know what that dog is doing. Beagles are a little bit different, and I may do it different than what some other people might do. Again, I will always tell you, like, the way I do it is not necessarily the way to do it. It's just a way to do it. We just want to give options here. I necessarily do not solo my beagle pups right away. I let them run with the pack. Most of the time, the pack can show them way more than I can. I'll set the foundation for them. I'll do the leg work on the front end, the drag work, the sight releasing, all those sort of things. But when they're actually in the pack, they're going to teach them more than I can because they're actually running the track. Having that puppy experience that. And sometimes me personally, I would like to see my beagle pup, run with 5 and 6 dogs. And my mentality behind that is that's probably one of the most overwhelming things that dog is going to encounter is a bunch of other dogs. It's loud. They're making a bunch of noise. They're moving. They're grooving. They're doing their thing. This pup can be taken back like, what the heck is going on here? The first few times, I expect that to happen. And then eventually, they're going to just fall right in line. That's what you at least want to see. And then I'll start reducing the number of dogs to now they're running by themselves or with another dog one-on-one. Now, there are some people who may, I'm just going to solo my beagle. I'm just going to solo him. I'm going to solo him, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. One thing I have noticed or have seen with other buddies who have done it that way, when it comes time to pack, sometimes those beagles who are soloed a lot, they don't want to pack. It's just they don't like to, or they're not used to doing it. So more times than not, they're going to go off and do their own thing while the pack is doing one thing. And then you get them all split up, and that can be an issue on its own too. It's just something to think about. So basically recapping on what we've been talking about, this is the fun part. We're at hunting scenarios. We're hunting these dogs now. We're taking them out to the place that we're going to be hunting, and you're really going to be watching your dog. Something to think about too when you're doing these hunting scenarios. Let's just talk about coon dogs for a second. Making sure that when you're doing your sight release in phase 3 and you're doing your release work, that it's around the time that you would be hunting. What I would often do is I would go in the evening time. It wasn't quite dark yet. It was just the sun was setting, and I'm start doing my work then. So it's light for the pup, and then it'll transition to being dark by the time we finished everything. And this allowed your dog to be okay with being out in the dark. Sometimes we can take a pup and we've been working during the day. We've been releasing coons, been doing all the things we're supposed to do, drag work, all this sort of stuff, but it's been light. And then we take them out at night. That's a whole different ball game for some dogs. You as a trainer have to understand that it can be completely new for this pup. The nighttime and the daytime are not the same thing. You know, in the day, and that's another reason why I like starting my dogs on squirrels, is because you can watch how they move through the woods. They can see, they hear different noises. They step on sticks. They know what that sounds like because they can look and see, oh, it's nothing scary, compared to if it's a pup working at night and it's very new to working at night. It may trip over something and it can spook them, and now the dog wants to stand by you the whole time, and you're frustrated figuring out what the heck just happened because he was doing so good, and now he doesn't want to do anything. In the grand scheme, they're still babies. You got to keep that in mind. You really have to keep that in mind. With the bird dogs too, again, this is something I'm learning as I'm going. I'm definitely learning that bird dogging is a very intimate thing. So when you're in phase 4, hunting scenarios, it's really just you and that dog. There's really nothing wrong with soloing a bird dog. Now, I would definitely suggest having another dog at some point in time, just because you would like your dog to honor the point. And again, that's something I'm learning, that if you're going to hunt with buddies, you're not just going to hunt by yourself. If one dog is pointing, you will want your dog to naturally, or at least know how to honor another dog's point. That way the bird doesn't flush out of there before anybody's ready. So you still have to work with another dog. Again, with beagles, I don't necessarily solo mine right out the gate. I really like putting them with the pack. And again, I don't necessarily put them with my full pack all the time. If I have a few slower dogs that I know for sure they know how to run a rabbit, they're going to run it the right way, they're going to do what they're supposed to do, I would take a group of them, 3 or 4 of those dogs, and take the pup with. If you are a person who is training 2 puppies, and a lot of us have done this before, to where, you go pick out pups, you're going to get 2 of them. That way, you can work with both of them. And whichever one you like the best, that's the one you'll keep, and you may sell the other one. Something to avoid, and something I made a mistake on doing that, is if you take 2 pups out there together and you're hoping that they're going to hunt, that is probably not going to happen. They are going to play with each other. They're going to run around. They're going to be what kids would be. If you're supposed to be going to a place that's supposed to be serious, kids are supposed to be quiet, and he has his buddy, his best friend with him, you think they're not going to get into some trouble or play around or joke around? This is part of what it is. So be cautious of hunting 2 pups at one time, because more times than not, they're going to play. And that's going to create frustration from you. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So in the grand scheme of things, this is basically the way that I'll usually walk through starting my puppies from phase 1 through 4. And then now, basically, the hunting scenarios is just that. Now I'm going to take the dog and try to do as many hunts as possible. That's really what it's going to come down to. And again, I hope that somebody can take some value from this, from the series. And we're going to continue sprinkling throughout the next podcast, deep diving into a little bit more on some of those topics that I may not have covered. It's really trying to get you started, get you doing some things. Because as you go and as you're starting to do some work with this pup, you're going to figure out things that not going to be talked about here. But if there's something that comes to mind and you would like me to go deeper on it, by all means, just leave a comment or shoot me a message on social media, Facebook, Bawlin Out Kennels, or Steve Thomas. We're pretty much on TikTok, Instagram, all the things. If you want to send me a message, and I've been thankful for the people who have been actually sending a message and asking questions, because there's going to be some podcasts in the future related to some of the questions that have been asked. But it's really just these phases are to get you started, to get you doing something with the dog. That way you have somewhat of a foundation. Because that dog, once it gets to a certain age, it's going to show you other things that I can't necessarily discuss. Because each dog is different. They're really like us, to where they have different personalities. They learn different. They learn at different speeds, depending on how well they're bred. There's a lot of variables that can go into how fast the dog can start, how they learn, and all those other things, how you teach, how you learn. Spending that time with that dog will tell you a lot. But as you're going through some of these situations, just remember to be patient. You're really trying to take this dog that does not speak English and you're trying to communicate with it to teach it an activity, to teach it a job. You may, as a trainer, have to step back and say to yourself, am I going about this the right way? Is what I'm trying to get across to this dog getting across to him? Are they actually understanding? And if they're not, being able to decipher where you need to improve or where you need to go back to, or different methods you may need to try to get the dog to understand. Again, the stuff we talk about over here is really just trying to give options. That's it. The way I may do things may not be the way, but it is a way. And we just really always try to keep it respectful over here. If you have any questions, because it's just like paying homage to the people who taught me. It's all I'm trying to do here is teach others the same thing the way that people have taught me. And I'm Stevie Thomas with Bawlin Out Kennels. Stay sharp, stay real, stay houndy.